Hello, hello. Thank you for coming and checking out my channel. My name is Jennifer and this is Jen the Bookworm. If you are new here, I hope you enjoy what you're about to watch. And if you're a repeat offender, I appreciate you very much. Today I'm just bringing a mid-month check-in, a little bit late. I intended to do this a couple days ago, but life kind of got busy and I was right at the tail end of a story I wanted to add into this check-in, so I waited until I finished that story. Then that's when life got busy, and it's been a couple more days since I intended, but here we are. So I just wanted to do a small check-in. Now, as you may or may not know from watching my TBR video, this month I intended to do some more mood reading and binge reading, and I'm just kind of picking as I go. I do not have a nailed down TBR this month. And this is not I hate TBRs, they suck, I'm not doing them anymore. Just, I had a couple of very structured months and I wanted to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And so I'm kind of doing that. This month I started out reading The Titan's Curse, the third book in the Percy Jackson series. My daughter had read it and finished it sometime in April, but I couldn't read it in April because I was doing a readathon and it didn't fit in there. So I started out the month by reading that. Didn't take me very long to read it. It was good. I really enjoyed it. I'm really kind of surprised by the quality of the sequels to the first book. Sometimes you don't get that, and I don't know if that's more true with kids' books than not, because I don't read a lot of middle grade, but I guess I assumed that the quality was going to be a little less, but it's not. It's really good. And even as a 40-something-year-old person, I still find things to enjoy from the story, and I appreciated it. So I read that. Then I went into reading The Well of Ascension, which is the second book in the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, and The Hero of Ages, which finishes the first Mistborn Era 1 trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. So I read those books, and I already put out a reaction to The Well of Ascension. I was blown away by the middle book. It is quite a middle book. I mean, it does not have middle book syndrome like some do. It was so good. I loved it. I was blown away. Enough to make a reaction video. And honestly, I wanted to again at the end of The Hero of Ages, but I keep finishing these books at like midnight and I gotta go to bed. So, and the reaction just isn't as pure the next morning after I've had time to sleep on it. So that's kind of unfortunate. But maybe I will make more of an effort when I read Era 2, to maybe vlog it or whatnot. So I don't know. I'll make plans for that later. But I did read both of those books. Enjoyed both of those books very much. I gave Hero of Ages 5 stars. Will of Ascension 4.5. And I believe I gave The Final Empire, the first one, like 4 stars. So 4.5, 5 stars. It got better as I kept going. I don't know exactly what I expected, but I did not expect what I got. It was so good. So I can't say enough. If you haven't read Mistborn, and I'm probably the last person on earth who's not read it, but if you haven't read Mistborn, you definitely should. You don't know what you're getting into, and it's great. So I read those. In the middle of reading the Mistborn series, I also participated in a buddy read with Alex from Tall Guy Reads and Baron, who is the founder of the Grimoire Discord. And the three of us were reading Legion by William Peter Blatty. And William Peter Blatty wrote The Exorcist, and this is a sequel book to The Exorcist. Not really, but kind of. In The Exorcist, there is a cop, Kinderman, who is trying to investigate a murder that has happened around the home of the child who has been possessed. And he he's a pretty hefty secondary character, but he is a secondary character. But he's doing some investigation, and because not to spoil too much or anything about The Exorcist, if you haven't read it or you haven't seen it, there's some supernatural stuff going on, and you can't just tell a cop, hey, there's some supernatural stuff going on. Well, let me tell you about it, because he won't believe you, obviously. So there's a lot of stuff going down, and this cop is investigating. And when he's a part of The Exorcist, he's a character that is ponderous. He seems to do a lot of thinking out loud, and but he seems sharp, and he seems to be well able to set a trap for the person he's interrogating or investigating or questioning. There's a scene where he's talking to the mom of Regan, the child, and just the way he asks her the questions he asks her, it's clear he's trying to set up something for her to fall into. It's clear he kind of has an idea of something that he's trying to get to. He seems like a pretty good investigator. He has some really fun dialogue with the priest and whatnot. So the Legion story focuses on him. He is the main character in that story. And I have to say, he wasn't my favorite character in the first book, just because there were so many good characters. He was still a pretty good character. But in Legion, I didn't like him as well, because it seemed like William Peter Blatty took this character and amped him up by like an exponent of 10 or something. I mean, he just seemed more than ponderous. Whatever that word is, he was exuberantly ponderous. He could not answer a straight question with a straight answer at all. There was one part, this doesn't give anything away, but there was one part in the story where he asked somebody, aren't you going to ask me about my experience in this? And the guy says, yes, how did that go? And he says, I'm not really willing to talk about it. Then why are you asking them to ask you about it? I just felt like very frustrating filler. It felt like a story, and I access this through audiobook, which is my norm. And it's unfortunate that the author didn't narrate this one, because the author was such a great narrator in The Exorcist. But in this one, it's not that the narrator was bad, it's just that he had the misfortune of not being William Peter Blatty. It was really the only problem with him, is he just wasn't the original guy. So, but it was already kind of a short book. It was already kind of like 8 point something hours, like 8.5 hours or something like that. But the story and stuff, it really could have been a short story. It really could have been a small novella. Because if you'd have taken out all the religious and philosophical ponderings that didn't have anything to do with the story at all, you'd had half a book. It would have been half the size. And it's not that none of his ponderings had anything to do with the story. That's not true. That's not a true statement at all. It's just that while he had some thought processes and stuff that were interesting and were germane to the story, they were very cleverly hidden among a bunch of exposition that meant nothing to the story. Just questioning the existence of God, questioning things like evolution, throwing them out there, talking about other mythologies and stuff like that. It's not that these things aren't interesting on their own, because they are, but it's like, here is a horrific murder, and while I am supposed to be working on this horrific murder, I am instead spending what feels like to me, the reader, half an hour talking to myself about the existence of God and whether or not God would allow something like this to happen if God didn't in fact exist, and so on and so forth. While the other cops and Emmys and whatnot in the area are sitting there looking at him like, dude, can we get on with our job? No, I need to sit here and think about this a little bit longer while staring at this poor dead body while not even really thinking about this, It sort of painted a scene in the beginning where they were starting to question whether or not he was senile. And by the end of that first scene, I think they would have answered their question. They would have taken him off the case and they would have gone on with someone a little more sane. Now, that is a lot of negative. And I didn't actually hate this book or anything. I gave it 3 stars. When they got past all that and actually got to the actual story, the murder mystery, there was a little bit of a supernatural twist because it is William Peter Blatty. And so we had that part was very interesting. And it was fun. It was fun to read. It was fun to go through. I really enjoyed the twist towards the end, and, bringing in the character that they bring in. If you know, you know. If you don't, you should read it. It saved the whole story for me. And then, they solve the thing, and then there's a little bit of whatever at the end, a little bit of philosophy and stuff. But by that point, it doesn't frustrate me because he's not like interrupting his job to do it. He's just, reflecting. And I didn't mind it as much in the reflection. It felt like, here we're going to ask a question, but we're not going to answer it until I get through a long time of pondering. Not even necessarily pondering the subject. So if you like religion and philosophy discussions and such, you may very well love this. And I don't dislike those things. I just didn't like it in the middle of the story. I was looking for a murder mystery. It was supernatural murder mystery, and I did get that eventually, but it could have been a shorter book and would have had the same or more impact, in my opinion. I gave it 3 stars, but there you go. So after I got done with that and with Mistborn, I started reading the Dresden Files. I am currently reading Turncoat, which is the 11th book. It's right before Changes, which is the book that everyone says is the most amazing one in the Dresden Files. I don't know if it's the most amazing now that we've come up with, we're up to book 17 now, but it is definitely the one that's talked about most often amongst people reading Dresden. So I'm super excited, and I'll probably start that today. I am still reading Turncoat, but I only have a couple hours left in it. I will get through that pretty quickly. I've got a day's worth of chores and stuff to do that I will be listening to that. So I will get done with Turncoat. I will do Changes. After Changes, I need to decide, am I going to continue on with Dresden or do something else? I'm kind of wanting to read a few shorter books this month. I have a goal to read 100 books in the year 2023. And when I'm reading bigger books, it's more difficult to reach that goal. So I'm trying to throw in some smaller books. Plus, this series, The Dresden Files, also Cradle by Will White. These are series that are small and that I've been reading on, and I'm interested in them. And sometimes reading a smaller book, especially when you've just read a bunch of big ones, it's where it's at. But also, I'm a little bit wanting to go back to Joe Abercrombie now that I've read some other stuff. So I will definitely read Changes, but after that I need to make a decision based off of how much time I have left in the month. And honestly, it takes me 2 days to listen to a Dresden book. I was already more than halfway through Turncoat in the first day of listening to it. So it takes almost no time for me to listen to these books. I may continue on with Dresden and try to get a bigger chunk of it done. Or I might go on to more Joe Abercrombie. He's got another trilogy that I really want to read. He's got a couple of sets that I want to read, but there's some standalones that that I also want to read within the same First Law world and stuff. So maybe I'll do that. I haven't quite decided. Maybe I will pull something out completely different from left field. Maybe I'll finish Poison Song by Jen Williams and finish the Winnowing Flame series. I don't know. And the whole point of this is not to have to know. So far that's where I am in the month. I have read four books. I'm almost done with the 5th book. I'll finish it today and start the 6th book today. So, you know, if I don't read anything else past that, I've read 6 books this month, which is more than what I normally read, so that's good. But I expect I'll probably read somewhere in the 7 or 8 book mark. So I guess we'll see at the end of the month. But this has been my mid-month check-in, and I'm feeling pretty good about it, and I'm having fun being able to binge through some series and finish some things up and advance myself in other things. And so I'm going to continue to have that fun, and I hope you had fun listening to me ramble on about the books that I read and liked. And if you did, please consider giving me a like. Please consider subscribing. I'm really trying to do that push towards 100 subs, and I'm hovering around almost getting there to the 90 mark. So we have just a few, like maybe a dozen more people, and I will have hit 100 subs. So if you wouldn't mind giving me a sub, I would appreciate it very much. It's free to do. It helps out my channel, and it helps me out a lot. So thank you very much for sticking around, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.